They were hunted. They were dragged from their homes. Families were separated. Fear spread through the streets of Jerusalem, and it seemed like everything was about to end. But instead of silence, something unexpected happened. The message didn't disappear. It spread even faster. After the death of Stephen, everything changed. A severe persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem. It wasn't small. It wasn't isolated. It was intense, relentless, systematic. Believers were no longer safe. Not in public, not in their homes. Men and women were being taken, one by one, dragged away, imprisoned. The goal was clear: to destroy the church completely. And at the center of this movement was a man named Saul. Saul was not indifferent. He was not passive. He was active, driven, focused. He went from house to house, searching, entering without hesitation, pulling people out, men, women, anyone who followed Christ. And he handed them over to be imprisoned. From a human perspective, it looked like the end. The movement was breaking. The community was scattering. Fear was winning. But something unexpected happened. Those who were scattered did not stop. They did not give up. They did not abandon the message. Instead, they carried it with them. Everywhere they went, they spoke about Christ. What was meant to destroy the church became the very thing that expanded it. Among those who left was Philip. He went down to Samaria, a place with its own history, its own tensions, its own divisions, and there, he began to proclaim Christ, not quietly, not timidly, but openly, clearly, directly. And something started to happen. People began to gather, at first, out of curiosity, then, out of attention, and finally, with openness. They listened, not casually, but with focus, with expectation, because they weren't just hearing words, they were seeing something. The message was not empty, it carried power. Unclean spirits began to leave people, crying out loudly as they departed. Those who were suffering found relief. Those who were broken began to be restored. The paralyzed started to move. The crippled found strength again. This was not theoretical. This was visible, real, concrete, and the result was unmistakable. The city was filled with joy, not temporary excitement, not superficial emotion, but deep, transforming joy. Acts of the Apostles, Acts 8. 1b8 There broke out a severe persecution of the church in Jerusalem, and all were scattered throughout the countryside of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. Devout men buried Stephen and made a loud lament over him. Saul, meanwhile, was trying to destroy the church. Entering house after house and dragging out men and women, he handed them over for imprisonment. Now, those who had been scattered went about preaching the word. Thus Philip went down to the city of Samaria and proclaimed the Christ to them. With one accord, the crowds paid attention to what was said by Philip when they heard it and saw the signs he was doing. For unclean spirits, crying out in a loud voice, came out of many possessed people, and many paralyzed and crippled people were cured. There was great joy in that city. Because something real had happened, something that fear could not stop. And then, we hear something even deeper, not just about what God does, but about who He is. Jesus speaks to the crowd, directly, clearly, without confusion. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger. Whoever believes in me will never thirst. This is not about physical hunger, not about food, not about temporary satisfaction. It is about something deeper, something every human being experiences. A hunger that cannot be explained easily, a thirst that never seems to go away. We search, constantly, for meaning, for fulfillment, for something that satisfies. We try many things, achievements, possessions, experiences, recognition, but even after all that, something still feels incomplete. And this is where Jesus speaks again, not with complexity, but with clarity. Everyone the Father gives me will come to me, and I will not reject anyone who comes to me. No exceptions, no conditions hidden, no barriers. Jesus continues, I came down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. And what is that will? That nothing is lost. Nothing, no life, no person, no story. Jesus shifts the focus from now to eternity. This is the will of my Father, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have eternal life, and I will raise him on the last day. Acts of the Apostles, Acts 8, 1b8. There broke out a severe persecution of the church in Jerusalem, and all were scattered throughout the countryside of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. Devout men buried Stephen and made a loud lament over him. Saul, meanwhile, was trying to destroy the church. Entering house after house and dragging out men and women, he handed them over for imprisonment. Now, those who had been scattered went about preaching the word. Thus Philip went down to the city of Samaria and proclaimed the Christ to them. With one accord, the crowds paid attention to what was said by Philip when they heard it and saw the signs he was doing. For unclean spirits, crying out in a loud voice, came out of many possessed people, and many paralyzed and crippled people were cured. There was great joy in that city. This changes everything, because it means life is not limited to what we see, not limited to what we feel, not limited to what we experience today. There is something beyond, and Jesus is pointing directly to it. The idea of bread is not random. It is intentional. Bread sustains life. It is basic, essential, daily. But Jesus presents himself as something greater, not just bread for the body, but bread for the soul. We eat every day to survive, but everything we eat eventually runs out, and no matter how much we consume, our bodies will still fade. But Jesus offers something different, a life that does not run out, a presence that does not disappear, a nourishment that does not end. As reflected in the teaching of the church, Christ is the answer to our deepest hunger, not a temporary answer, not a partial answer, but a complete one. So now, the message becomes personal, not about the crowd, not about the past, but about you. What are you searching for? What are you trying to fill? What are you feeding your life with? And more importantly, what are you feeding your soul? Remember the beginning, persecution, fear, uncertainty. Everything seemed lost, but it wasn't. Because the message carried something deeper, a truth that cannot be destroyed, a presence that cannot be removed, a promise that remains. The question is not whether the message still exists. It does. The real question is, will you respond to it? Today, not tomorrow.